Hello and welcome back to the Bryan Laskin Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bryan Laskin. And as always, I'm excited that you're here. And today we're going to be talking about something huge, in my opinion. And every once in a while, maybe a little too frequently, at Tooth Apps and Care and my companies I'm part of, we announce something, right? And today we're going to be alluding to a big, massive thing that we're going to be announcing in early 2027. And really, it's about innovation that dentistry has completely whiffed on, completely missed. And, look, dentistry has an uncomfortable contradiction, but obviously dentistry is one of the most clinically advanced professions in healthcare. Just look at what has changed in my not so short career since I graduated in dental school right before the turn of the century in 1999. Since then, we have digital radiography, CBCT, intraoral scanning has gone crazy, guided implant surgeries, clear aligners are just normal now, digital treatment planning, advanced restorative materials. AI obviously is the big buzzword right now. Same-day dentistry. When we started doing same-day dentistry about 20 years ago, it was a massive deal, and that's still not as common as it probably should be, in my opinion. But my point is that we've had more predictable outcomes than many of us could have imagined when I graduated. I remember looking at the first CAD/CAM machines going, oh my gosh, this is one of the most innovative things I've ever seen in my life. I don't think in my career I'm going to see this rate of progress. And as we all know, over the last 20 years, progress has done nothing but accelerate. And we should be proud of that progress. But there's an uncomfortable contradiction hiding underneath it. And that's what this is about. While dentistry has dramatically reinvented the tools used during treatment, it's barely even touched the system surrounding treatment. The technology in the operatory is extraordinary. The experience surrounding the operatory is often built around CAD/CAM and 3D printing and all these really cool technologies and AI being used to read radiographs. But the experience in the practice outside the operatory is built around phone calls and voicemails and paper forms, data entry, closed software that you can't, do you integrate with my practice management system? BS, disconnected systems, patients trying to remember what they were told because, they leave the office with nothing but with the memories that are poor in their head. Staff members manually chasing down the next action to figure out what the hell to do. Referrals disappearing into silence about half the time. Treatment plans sitting unfinished. Practices depending on workflows that should have disappeared years ago. Different workarounds and BS. Dentistry is clinically modern, but frankly, we are operationally obsolete. How we run our practices is frankly embarrassing. Should be totally proud of the clinical dentistry that we've done, but the innovation that dentistry's missed is how we run our practices. We keep asking ourselves the same questions. How can we improve the procedure? Can we make the crown faster? Can we make the scan clearer? How can we make the diagnosis more precise? And these are all phenomenal, worthy questions and worth our pursuit. But we failed to ask a larger question. What kind of system should exist around the patient before, between, and after appointments? That's the question that will define the next era of dentistry. Because clinical dentistry has gone so far, the non-clinical aspects has really stagnated. The appointment became the center of dentistry. For generations, the dental appointment has been treated as the center of the entire dental universe. And again, with good cause, for a good reason. But almost everything else has been designed around getting the patient physically into the chair has slipped. The schedule, the software, the way we staff our practices, communication, treatment plans, revenue model, even the way we decide whether care happens or not. When the patient is in the office, dentistry is highly organized. The provider has information, the team knows exactly what needs to happen, but when the patient leaves the office, everything crumbles. It falls apart. The treatment plan explanation becomes a memory. Financial decisions are a piece of paper. And the next step becomes a phone call and another phone call, or maybe a non-secure email. The referral becomes a document rather than something that is automatically coordinated. It is embarrassing. The patients spend only a few hours in our practices, but they're outside of practice all the time, and we have dropped the ball on that. We've been innovating around chair time. The future will be determined by how we expand on the operations of our practice. The real opportunity is not merely improving the appointment and the quality of care, which again is paramount. It's extending care beyond the appointment. That requires more than just a simple reminder. It requires connected systems. It requires, frankly, connected dentistry, the Tooth Apps tagline. More software doesn't create innovation. I just want to say that. Like, having more isn't better. Okay, so I want to say that on the front end. And dentistry certainly does not suffer from a shortage of software. Most practices have more software today than they did 10 years ago. And frankly, they can have overlapping systems and not even know that the features exist in either system. They have a practice management system, imaging software, patient communication software, payments, financing software, analytics maybe, insurance software, reputation management, AI tools, probably 3 or 4 of those, scheduling tools, referral tools, revenue cycle tools, and every product may solve a legitimate problem, but adding more disconnected applications does not automatically create innovation. That's why I just saw something like 60% of people that implement AI don't use it. I can't remember if 60% still use it or 60% don't use it, but it's roughly 50-50. Why? Because if it's disconnected, it's not valuable. Sometimes it creates a more sophisticated form of fragmentation. So you have all these tools that you can't use. The practice now has more capabilities, but the information still does not move correctly. The team must log into multiple systems. The patient receives messages from different numbers and different brands and different platforms. Data is copied, exported, imported, reconciled, and re-entered. Vendors may have access to information the practice does not fully even understand, and certainly doesn't have visibility into what the hell vendors are doing with the information that we are stewards of. Integrations may work until one company changes an interface, sells the business, changes pricing, or decides a competitor should no longer have access. Not legal, but that's the way it works. That is not a connected system. It's a collection of dependencies. Dentistry has repeatedly confused features with infrastructure. Infrastructure of how our operations work. A feature improves one moment. Infrastructure becomes what's possible across the entire system. A reminder is a feature. A persistent patient relationship is infrastructure. A referral form is a feature. A referral identity and observable life cycle are infrastructure. Data export is a feature. Practice controlled, permissioned, auditable access is infrastructure. Another dashboard is just a feature, but connected intelligence layers that goes across multiple systems is infrastructure. And the next era will not be won by the company with the longest feature list. It will be shaped by the companies that connect the fragmented pieces without taking control away from practices and patients. The lack of innovation is not because dentists are not intelligent or unintelligent. It's because practice teams resist every form of patient progress. That's not why. Practices don't resist progress. They just don't like when they don't get the results. It's not even primarily because software companies lack talent. Arguably, some do, some don't, but the system itself has rewarded fragmentation. Legacy software has become the system of record. Once the records were trapped inside individual products, every new company had to negotiate for access. The incumbents have controlled the gateway. The practice paid for the software, created the data, and carried the responsibility. But the practice still struggles to move the information, connect with another product, or understand exactly what accessing is even about. The structure created several consequences. Innovation is expensive. Integrations are inconsistent. Switching systems is painful. New companies rebuilt the same connections repeatedly. Practices become dependent on vendors and pay way too much for their software. Patients remain disconnected from their own information. Technology companies competed over access rather than how do they improve care. Not just improve care clinically again, but operationally. How do we close the diagnosis to dollars gap, getting more diagnosed treatment in your chairs and collected revenue? And that's why dentistry could produce brilliant individual tools without producing a truly connected environment. Everyone built another room, but no one is building the hallways. And without hallways, every room becomes a silo. Tooth Apps was created to build those hallways, not every room, not to force every practice onto one monolithic product that does everything, not to replace every technology company. The purpose is to make an ecosystem work as an ecosystem. Tooth Apps is often described through the products people can see, but the larger strategy is easier to understand when you look through the layers. At the practice level, Tooth Apps connects fragmented systems together and helps practices activate information already inside them, closing that diagnosis to dollars gap. Care creates a persistent relationship between patients and practices. The patient relationship no longer has to disappear when the appointment ends. And Tooth Apps, again, is controlling who can access data, what information they can see, how they can access it, how often that access occurs, and what authority remains active. Care is expanding on new ways to create revenue for your practice that doesn't exist today. Tooth Apps is the connective layer that allow technologies to participate. The point is not to build a closed empire here, right? It's the exact opposite. The point is to create an open environment where practices maintain control, patients stay connected, and technology can work together without the legacy problems. Data can move with appropriate authority. Commerce can occur closer to the moment of need, and innovation does not require another generation of manual workarounds. This is fundamentally different vision from what other dental app companies are building. An app sits inside an existing system. Infrastructure changes the system. Innovation cannot merely look impressive on a conference stage. It must improve the actual economics of care. And that means making life better for the patient and making the business stronger for your practices. Too many dental technology conversations force a false choice. They suggest that a practice can either focus on patient care or focus on revenue. My friends, that's wrong. The best revenue is created when the patient successfully moves from need to action. And that's missing over 50% of the time. When a patient understands the diagnosis, receives the right information, can ask questions securely, can schedule without friction, can evaluate payment or financing options, can access the necessary product or services at the right time, can stay connected after leaving your practice, the patient receives better support. The practice completes more appropriate care, and revenue improves because the systems perform better, not because the practice applies more pressure. And that's what our operating truth is at Tooth Apps, right? We call it care more, make more. Care more is not sentimental branding. It means designing systems around what the patient actually needs to move forward. And make more is not simply about charging more. It means capturing value that the practice already creates with your patients, but frequently lose more than 50% of the time because the path to action is fragmented. Old systems place enormous economic value at risk. Unscheduled treatment, unfinished referrals, which leads to unscheduled treatment, missed calls, again, unscheduled treatment, abandoned financing decisions, repeated administrative tasks. Our team members are doing so much useless, boring crap. Team members spend moving information manually, patients leaving the ecosystem to find answers elsewhere, like ChatGPT. But better infrastructure turns those losses into completed revenue. But completed revenue is not the entire vision, obviously. It's the first proof that a connected system works. So, innovation is not a better tool inside a broken system. That's the takeaway. I'm going to say it again. Innovation is not a better tool inside a broken system. It is innovation that changes a system in which every tool operates. A faster scanner is valuable, but does it solve a disconnected patient experience? A smarter algorithm in your AI is valuable, but it does not establish appropriate access, governance, and accountability to the data in the first place. A beautiful interface, which doesn't exist too often in dentistry, is valuable, but it does not automatically create interoperability. A new communication channel is obviously valuable, but it doesn't create a persistent relationship unless the surrounding information and actions support that actions and the faith that the patient put in the human beings in your practice. Leaders in dentistry must stop juggling innovation by the quality of the judging innovation by the quality of the demonstration. We must judge it by the structural change it creates within our organizations. Ask, does it reduce dependence on manual work? Huge in dentistry right now. Does it allow information to move more effectively? Again, if it doesn't work. Does it strengthen your practice's control? Does it keep the patient connected to your practice? Does it make the next action easier for the patient? Scheduling, completing care, paying for care. Does it improve care and economics together? I've said it before. One of the reasons why I love dentistry is when done right, everybody wins. Care does not need to come at the expense of economic gain. Economic gain comes from improving care. Does it remain valuable when the novelty wears off? Is this product cool or is it effective? The difference between innovation theater and infrastructure is the difference. Look, artificial intelligence does deserve special attention because it may be the most important tool of this era, but it also may become the fastest way to automate the dysfunction that we already have. If AI is placed on top of a fragmented data stack, unclear permissions, disconnected workflows, weak accountability, look, it does not automatically fix those problems. In fact, it amplifies them. It may create answers without sufficient context, which is the wrong answers, right? It may trigger actions without clear authority, which cause lawsuits. It may make decisions that cannot be reconstructed later. That is just confusion. It may move faster than the organization's ability to govern it. And dentistry cannot afford to treat AI anymore as a layer of magic sprinkled over legacy architecture and infrastructure. Before intelligence can operate responsibly at scale, our systems need connected information, trustworthy identity, clear authority, defined purpose, revocation of that authority, auditability, so we can tell what has gone down, and observable outcomes. In short, AI needs infrastructure. The companies building that infrastructure will ultimately matter more than companies created another isolated AI demonstration. I'm going to say that again, because I think that needs to be emphasized. Companies that build the infrastructure are going to matter more than the companies that are creating the isolated AI products on top of that infrastructure. That's what Tooth Apps is doing. We're building that foundation upward, connecting the systems, establishing the right controls, preserving the relationship that you have with patients, making actions observable. Then we can turn on intelligence that operate access to that environment through our products like Reminders AI, or frankly, anybody's AI product that can use that infrastructure to greater good. So now, as we've been doing on the Bryan Laskin Podcast, I've got a CEO diagnosis for the leaders listening, especially DSOs executives, practice owners, technology executives, and investors. Here are the questions that I would take into your next leadership meeting. Question 1. Are we buying innovative technology, or are we just accumulating disconnected products that don't work together? How many systems does the average team member need to access to complete one meaningful patient process? 2, who controls our data environment? Can we clearly identify which vendors have access, what they can access, why they actually have access to medical necessity, whether access can be revoked, and what record exists of that access, the reconstructible audit trail? Question 3, what happens when the patient leaves? Do we maintain a meaningful connection with that patient, or do we hand the patient a treatment plan on a piece of paper, even if that and hope that the next step occurs in the care? Or is that patient going to be the 52 to 57% of patients that don't do anything? Question 4, where does responsibility disappear? Which process routinely drops and enters silence? Referrals, treatment plan follow-up, financing, records requests, patient questions, product recommendations. Number 5, is our technology increasing organizational control or increasing vendor dependence? Let's say it again. Is our technology increasing organizational control or increasing vendor dependence? Can we change a major vendor without losing access, functionality, history, or strategic flexibility? It's a big one. Question 6, are we measuring activity or completion? The message sent is activity. The referral transmitted is activity. The treatment plan presented is activity. A completed next action is an outcome. Question 7, what are we doing today that would look absurd to another industry? There's a long list, my friends. Faxing, re-entering the same information from a piece of paper, calling on the phone call, depending on an employee's memory or even an employee's skill to do an important process, accepting that no one knows whether the next step even occurs. Those are not minor inconsistencies or things that we have to deal with because of the way the industry is. They're signals that the systems you have in place need to be replaced. Now, that's going to bring us to what's next. What I talked about at the very beginning, the top of the show, something new. Everything we talked about so far, stuff we already do at Tooth Apps, frankly, right? So if you're having problems, give us a call. But what's coming next? Tooth Apps is preparing something designed to do more than just announce our products, because frankly, we have category-defining, industry-changing things, and I've been struggling. How do I get our ideas out there? We're doing some really transformative things. Even the things that we've already done and talked about today doesn't even touch what's coming in 2027. So there's going to be a new way for us to examine ideas, systems, and technologies, defining where dentistry goes next. The purpose is not to create another dental meeting or a platform to showcase just, other features. What we're looking to do is name the beliefs that our industry must confront to show what is now possible and how we circumvent those broken systems and connect the problems that dentistry has tolerated with infrastructure required to solve them. The first conversation is going to be a very provocative theme that I'm going to release closer to the event. But first, the name of the event. It's called Northstar. Why Northstar? Because we are predicting the direction our industry is headed. And if you adjust the sails of your ship, your organization, to the North Star, we believe that you're setting the right course. And frankly, we have a history of setting the right course. Go back and listen to some early versions of this podcast if you want to get the receipts, as they say. Of course, it's not a subtle nod also to the great state that our team comes from, Minnesota, the Northstar state. So if you want to be up to date on where our industry is headed, pay attention right here on the Bryan Laskin Podcast and read the Connected Dentistry LinkedIn newsletter. That's the Bryan Laskin LinkedIn page. And now in early 2027, we're going to bring you Northstar. And it's a new way to announce products in dentistry that I don't think we've seen before. The frontier is in front of us, and Tooth Apps Northstar is where we begin showcasing what's on the other side of where dentistry is headed. Dentistry does not need to apologize for the innovation that's already produced, but the clinical progress that we've seen has been remarkable. But clinical progress alone is not enough. Patients now live in a world where almost every other industry is available on demand, connected, personalized, transparent. Patients have self-service, it's mobile, and it's continuously accessible. That's what the next era is going to require. Open systems, persistent relationships, patient action rather than communication, practice control rather than invisible dependence, observable completion rather than untracked activity, infrastructure rather than a gigantic stack of disconnected features that don't work together except at the behest of some organization. The last 30 years have changed the tools. The next 30 years, we are going to change the system together. The change has already begun. Tooth Apps is building the practice side, CARE is building the patient side, and there's other organizations who are doing this work that's great. And together, we're building connected infrastructure required to move dentistry forward. This is not innovation for the sake of novelty. It's innovation that restores the order of care and allows practices to operate with greater control. It connects better care with better revenue, and it allows patients to move with greater confidence. Technology to serve the relationship instead of fragmenting it, and it allows dentistry to capture the clinical and economic value that we have already earned instead of letting more than 50% of our diagnosed treatment go to waste. So watch for Tooth Apps Northstar, where dentistry goes next. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time and attention. Pay attention to the LinkedIn page for the Connected Dentistry newsletter, and look forward to talking to you next month here on the Bryan Laskin Podcast. Take care.